Today, we're going to take a look at my community fish tank setup. We're also going to go over the fundamentals of a community fish tank, and then we're going to take a look at my top 10 list of community aquarium fish. Don't go anywhere. What's up, YouTube and all my fish keeping friends? How's it going out there in fish tank land? My name is Joseph Hardin from JH Aquatics, and I'm here to bring with you all my fish keeping adventures, knowledge, and more. Alright guys, first we're going to take a look at this community aquarium setup that I have here. For first important thing to remember is that there are three parts of the tank primarily. You have the top portion of the tank, the middle, and the lower portion of the tank. And you have different kinds of fish that like to hang out in different parts of the tank. So I find that it's really important to have a balance of fish. You want to have fish that are going to hang out and be on the lower portion of the tank, which are usually going to be your bottom feeders, your cleanup crew, your shrimp, your snails, your algae eaters, your catfish, your pleco, things like that. In the middle of the tank, you're going to have your fish, obviously, that are going to hang out in the center of the tank most of the time. They're going to be schooling fish a lot of the times, or medium, bigger sized fish are going to hang out in that area of the tank. And then you have the top of the tank. You're going to have fish that primarily like to hang out up there. A lot of top feeders, things like guppies, and even there's some catfish like the glass catfish and things like that that'll hang out around the top of the tank. Endlers, and just eat food off of the surface. But it's really important to kind of get a balance, have a mixture of fish, and also don't do what you see a lot of people doing is buying one of this kind of fish and one of this kind of fish. Take the time to understand what kind of fish it is, whether it's a schooling fish, a shoaling fish, or whatnot, or a very aggressive fish or not. I think when it comes to a community tank, you should keep primarily docile, passive fish. You got some semi-aggressive fish. And then it also is the order that you put the fish into the tank. A lot of people will get the top of the chain, first. They'll go for the fish that is the largest first or something like that. That fish will get in that tank and say, oh, this is my tank. This tank belongs to me. And then you go and put a little school of neon tetras or some harlequin respora, and he's going to want to beat them all up. He's going to say, this is my house. What are you doing in it? So I think a really important thing is also to do is you start out from the bottom and work your way up. Start out with snails. Start out with shrimp. Start out with your algae eaters, your loaches, anything in the catfish family or whatnot that's not going to tear up your tank. Obviously, I'm a planted guy. I don't want anything too aggressive on the bottom of the tank to rip up my plants and things like that. Anyways, and then you work your way to the middle of the tank. Things like these neon tetra and this tank here. They like to hang out in the middle of the tank and kind of hang out in the lower portion of the tank as well, kind of in this area here as you see them right now. And then you have the respora, they like to hang out kind of in the middle of the tank here as well, because they're both really schooling fish, and that's part of it as well. I think, and then at the top of the tank, you're gonna have things like I mentioned before, like the guppies and endlers and other kinds of small nano like catfish and whatnot that are gonna just graze all of the proteins off of the surface of the water. Another important thing to think about when you're looking at a community tank is going to be having not just plants to help absorb the nitrates and the nitrites, but also have rocks, some structures, some kind of barriers, things where fish can hide from each other so that they're not just annoyed by each other the whole time if you have a community, a mixture of fish. I think it's very important to remember to give space and places for certain kinds of fish to hide. And research the fish they're getting. Make sure that you get you get a pleco, you want to give a pleco, a plecoscomus, you want to give them a place to hide, or they're going to be stressed out the whole time. You're not going to put a pleco in an empty tank with no place to hide, and it's kind of common sense, but you want to make sure that you think about whether or not your fish are going to be happy together. That's the important thing in a community tank. And I think it's important also, if you're going to buy a fish that is a schooling fish, to buy a school of fish. You want to make sure that you actually get 3 to 5, 7 something like that. It's a lot of. I like an odd number, but I prefer to at least do 7 to 10, honestly, because they're just going to be happier and healthier when they have a community of their same species to hang out with. They're going to feel a lot more comfortable and safe in the tank for sure, like right from the first day. And I think another thing is just basic fish tank aquarium setup is you don't throw everything in at once. You start with what I guess I was saying before. You start with the bottom of the tank, the smaller fish, and then you work your way up to say, I actually have I have an angelfish in here hiding out. He's chilling out right now. But at one point I had 2 angelfish in here. This is a 29-gallon Bowfaced tank, and it's really too big for 2 angelfish, especially if they're not happy with each other. These rocks, they will kill themselves and kill each other. That's another thing to think about. You don't want fish that are going to be in a tank with other hardscape that's actually going to damage them if they're too big for that tank. You just have to keep it realistic. If you want a big fish, get a big tank. But you want to keep it, you want to save the big fish for last. You want to save the more aggressive fish for last, so that when they go into the tank, there's already a whole family, a community of other fish, so they're kind of humbled by that experience, and they're not going to go around beating everybody up saying, this is my home, what are you doing here? I think that's really an important thing, and it works well for me. But that there is pretty much the fundamentals of a community tank, how I would lay it out, set it out, how I would pick out the fish that I would want to have in it, just as a basic idea. Alright guys, now we're going to go ahead and take a look at my top 10 community aquarium fish. Now the first 5 I don't have in my fish room or in my presence, so I'm stuck with pictures, but the other 5 I do have here. So we'll start with the first 5. Number 1, we have the Ember Tetra. It's a very small, it's a nano fish, about 1 inch. I love it because of the orange color and the translucentness to the back of the fish. It's a schooling fish. It's peaceful. It's more of a passive fish. You don't have to worry about being aggressive towards anyone else. Number 2, we have the dwarf gourami. It's from South Asia. It prefers actually slow water, so I would keep that in mind when you plan on putting it in a tank with other fish that prefer a little bit more flow in the water. And on top of that, it also can be a little bit more territorial and slightly aggressive. Number 3, we have the coolie loach. It's an eel-like fish. It's from Malaysia and Indonesia, and it's actually nocturnal. It's more of your bottom feeder. It's part of your cleanup crew. Number 4, we have the silver-tip tetra. It's actually found in blackwater streams, creeks, and rivers, as well as caves in Brazil. And it's a little more aggressive and agile, but it only gets about 1 inch. It's a nice schooling fish. 5, we have the rummy-nosed tetra. It's a beautiful fish. From the nose to the black and white spots on the tail. It's a South American schooling fish, but it's also considered to be the mine canary of the fish hobby. So when the red in the nose of and the face of the fish can start to fade away, it's usually a sign that the fish is stressed, which is usually a sign that there's something wrong with your water column or something up in your tank. So it's a really good fish for that. Number 6 is the Harlequin Respora. Like I was saying before, it's a really nice, it's a schooling fish, but it's a loosely schooling fish. But it does do very well in an aquascape tank. I think it really pops with a lot of green and plants behind it. Those orangish copper colors that start to pop when they're really healthy. It's a beautiful fish, and it kind of hangs out in the top of the tank or in the middle of the tank. Number 7, we have the neon tetra. It's a really nice schooling fish, especially in large numbers, and it is a little sensitive though when it comes to heavy changes in water parameters. Number 8 is the guppy. You're looking at a fancy guppy here. You have the sunset micro riff guppy in here right now, mixed with some cherry barbs. But they're a great community fish. They're pretty docile. They hang out near the top of the tank when in a community tank. And they travel over the tank for food. They'll go down to the bottom and up to the top and do whatever they want. The only thing that I like to keep in mind when it comes to live-bearing fish is that they can blow up in a tank, and that will drastically affect the bioload on the tank, you know. So I definitely try to think about what live bearers I'm putting in and whether or not there's male or females. Like in this tank here, I only have male guppies in here because I don't want them to breed in this community tank. I just don't want to deal with it. I don't want to have to chase around those rocks for babies and trash my plants. So I just consciously try to make sure that I'm not putting fish that are going to reproduce like cockroaches or rabbits or something. I also have my other fancy guppies from Thailand down here. These are my males, and I have the females over here hanging out. But the guppies are definitely probably a perfect beginner fish for a community tank. They can handle a range of water parameters, so I definitely recommend them as a first fish. Alright, number 9 we have the glass catfish. If I can get a good shot of him, I only have one right now, but he's a transparent, he's also considered called a ghost catfish. Now if you catch a glimpse of the light reflecting off of that bottom part of his fin, because he is like a knife fish, you'll see this rainbow iridescence that just flickers when his body moves. You can see it right there for a second. It's just incredible. I've fallen in love with this fish. In this community tank, it likes to hang out at the top, but I just love to do an aquascape and have like 40 or 50 of these glass catfish in a school with some high light. And it's just, I would love to see that, just like 50 of them, and have the light reflecting off of them. I lost him. He takes off every once in a while and hides out. Number 10, we have the platy. This is a wonderful beginner fish. It's also a live bear, so keep that in mind when it comes to putting it in a community tank. It will explode like you see here in this tank, but it is definitely a very docile, passive fish. It's a perfect beginner fish for a community tank. When it comes to putting it in a community tank, it will explode like you see here in this tank, but it is definitely a very docile, passive fish. Is a perfect beginner fish for a community tank. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And thank you again to all the subscribers that I already have. And if you're not subscribed, you like this content and want to see more, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. And remember, like, comment, and share. And I'm just curious, what is your favorite community fish? Go ahead and let me know in the comments below. And remember, keep your tanks clean, your fish fed, and have fun.